welcome back to MilSpouse in the House. I'm your host, Christie Nix, 22-year active duty Army wife. We have 3 kids. Our oldest just finished up her 2nd year at UGA. My middle graduates in 2 weeks, and my son is almost 13. And we just recently retired in the Fort Stewart, Georgia area, where I am currently the head coach and personal trainer at our local Anytime Fitness. So if you've been through even one PCS, you know it's not just a move. It's paperwork, logistics, stress, and 1,000 decisions all happening at once. And most of the time, you're figuring it out as you go. Today's episode is all about changing that. Joining me is Megan Harless, founder of PCS Like a Pro, military spouse, and one of the leading voices pushing for PCS reform. Megan has been advocating for military families since 2018, helping thousands navigate moves, understand their entitlements, and avoid the mistakes so many of us make. And she's currently working on a book to bring those lessons to even more military families, which we'll talk about later in the episode. Before we dive into Megan's wealth of knowledge on all there is to know about military moves, a quick reminder that you can always find the latest on military life, PCS tips, benefits, and real-life resources at MilSpouses.com. And if this lifestyle ever feels overwhelming, you're not alone. And support matters. Here is a quick word from our sponsor, Talkspace.
Military life is nonstop. PCS moves, deployments, late nights. Who has time for therapy? Teletherapy makes it possible anytime, anywhere. Flexible sessions, privacy, and continuity, even across relocations. Your mental health is mission critical. Don't wait. Talkspace is here to help.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Today, I am joined by Megan Harless, founder of PCS Like a Pro. If your family is gearing up for a PCS, whether it's your first or your 10th, and you've ever said there has to be a better way to do this, this episode is just for you. Megan, I cannot wait to talk all things PCS. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been a military spouse? How did you meet your husband? And how many times have you moved with the military?
Yes, first, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited, of course, to talk all things PCS. I've been a military spouse for 20 years. My husband did retire last year. He has fully embraced it with the beard. I am still like, this is new. Like, what am I doing in life? But we met, 22 years ago, back in college. No, longer than that. No, about 22 years ago. At this point, I don't even think it matters anymore. I feel like I've known him forever. But back in college, he was a junior and I was a freshman. We went to 2 different colleges. So I went to University of Charleston, West Virginia. He went to West Virginia State University. 2 small colleges, about 10, 15 minutes apart from each other. But we were both in ROTC. So we had a combined ROTC program. And so as a freshman, I knew there was this guy named Harless that it was always getting yelled at because the juniors were preparing to go to advanced camp. And it wasn't until about that November, we went to the shooting range at the West Virginia State Police Academy, which was right there next to the college. We went up and used their shooting range to do our weapons qualification process. And they had all of the juniors and the guys getting ready to go to advanced camp up first to make sure that they had time to qualify that day. And then they took all of us freshmen and newbies and paired us up with them. And it just so happened that me and him got paired up together. And I was just like, oh, this is Harless. So I was just like, Harless looks kind of cute in uniform. And then he opens his mouth and starts talking. And he's got that West Virginia Southern drawl thing.
Oh, okay.
And I was just like, okay, this is what we're doing. And so
you have my attention.
Yes, we had our first conversation then. And then like the rest is history. So that's how we met. But in our 20 years of active duty time, we spent 4 of those years as dual military, but we had completed 12 PCSs and then 2 local moves within that time frame. And sometimes I feel like those local moves are much more harder than the cross-country moves.
Yeah, they're definitely, it's still a move, right? All of it still counts. Yeah. So your involvement in PCS advocacy didn't just come out of anywhere. PCS Like a Pro really started out of frustration, rightly so. and turned into something much bigger. Take us back to how all of this began.
So I love calling it accidental advocacy. And then one of my friends reminded me nothing's accidental. Everything is for a purpose, and you're where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be. We have to go back to 2018. If you PCS'd then, you know it was a really bad year. We had a lot of folks that were talking about like their stuff not showing up. And if it did show up, it showed up just broken and splintered into pieces. My family, we moved 2017 and then 2019. We skipped what we thought was the rock bottom year at that point. And so at the time I wrote a blog site. It was sharing the military life from the spouse perspective, something that at that time we never really heard much about. And so hearing all of this stuff happen was August 24th of 2018, I wrote this open letter, General Military Families Grievance of the PCS process to our elected officials and our senior military leadership. Just that military families were tired. We were tired of things showing up broken or not at all. We were tired of just being told, just file a claim. That was the answer to everything. Just file a claim. And it's like, I shouldn't have to just file a claim. Like, I should expect my table to show up in one piece. I should expect my kids' clothes and toys to actually show up in some kind of condition. And so it was a letter just asking for better accountability of the experiences that families were having and better transparency to the reprimands and repercussions that companies were facing. So that way we knew action was actually being taken and it wasn't just the lip service of like, oh, they'll get a letter. Can we get proof of that? Can we know that they actually did? I posted letter. And so somebody in the first few comments said this would make a great change.org petition. I was like, sure, why not? Put it into change.org, posted the link. It was a Friday. My husband was on rotation in Poland. I had 3 young kids at home. He was like a week away from coming home. And like, I was totally involved with all of the things on post, the different spouses clubs, FRG, the PWOC, all of the things. And in my kids' school volunteering. So I literally had no time. I expected that petition to die off into internet land over the weekend. And it did not. Within a matter of just a few short weeks, it had 1,000 signatures on it. I had all of the media calling me saying, hey, let's discuss this more. I had Transcom calling me saying, hey, what is your purpose with this petition? What are you trying to do with it? And then I had defense fellows from Congress calling saying, hey, we're an active duty family. Our last PCS was a complete mess. And that was our PCS arriving here to the National Capital Region for this assignment. What can we do together to get my senator on board to help support you and to work this through? Wow. And at that time, like, I started hearing all of these stories and realizing it wasn't just isolated to one service branch. It wasn't to one installation. It wasn't to one moving company. And so now having all of this attention on it, it was like, okay, like we've got something going here. And so I kind of felt this sense of responsibility of, let's see this through and let's make sure that the changes that happen are the good changes. And it's not just the standard lip service that we always get, not just that, thanks for letting us know, we'll take a look at it, but let's keep applying the pressure and see if we can get the changes that we need.
That's incredible. Yes. And at a minimum, like our stuff should come not broken or accounted for. But the claim filling out, it's like by the time you finish that process, you're moving again. It's exhausting. And so I do know that a lot of spouses feel like PCSing really is harder than it should be. So from your perspective, what is actually broken in this process?
Things that are still broken that I am very hopeful that are going to get better because we have the new personal property activity being stood up. So I'm hopeful these things are going to get better, but I think we're still lacking that accountability and transparency piece. I think, we're still using the same companies that you see in all of the spouse groups of having, just a horrible experience with. Yeah. And it feels like, again, with that transparency piece, it feels like we don't see, on the back end, when they say, we're going to write them up, we're going to give them a letter of warning, we don't get to see that actually happens. And so I think we're still missing some of that transparency and accountability piece of things. Also, moving is expensive. And so for a move that is required of our families to do, I strongly believe we need to be getting to the place where all the expenses are actually covered and not just a portion of them. Like when we talk about like our mileage rate, our fuel costs aren't fully covered. It's designed to only cover a portion of it. So families are still coming out of pocket on numerous different aspects of this required move because the entitlements just haven't caught up to what the expenses are today.
Very, very true. I remember when we moved to Fort Knox, they were downsizing the base. So there was no housing on post. My husband had just come home from a deployment, and there was the housing crisis of 2008, I think it might have been 2010, and we paid a fortune. The solution was live in a hotel. That was our solution. And we had 2 small children, and their dad had been gone. We were ready to get back to our family life, and that was the solution. So I think we spent way over BAH just out of the need as a family to be together in a home for only 2 years. We were only there for 2 years. And, those are parts of the conversation that just are not talked about in any way. And I'm so grateful to know that some of those things are being mentioned and the accountability to it. So if someone has orders in hand right now, what's the number one mistake you see the families making when it comes to PCSing?
Narrowing this down to one is very difficult for me.
I'm sure.
I will say probably the first thing is families holding on to their orders and waiting to schedule their move. Your report date may not be till July or maybe even the beginning of August, but you have your orders now. You need to start getting your move set up in DPS for how you plan to move, especially if you're having the military move you. You want to get your move in there so that way they can get it assigned to a company and it's not a last minute trying to find somebody for you. The second thing, if I can add a second one in there, is knowing those entitlements and being able to do a PCS budget to know what is and is not reimbursed, what is and isn't going to be covered. So you can start seeing, do I need to save a little bit more? Are we putting a little bit on a credit card? How are you going to make up that difference of things? That way you're not arriving to your next duty station thousands of dollars in the hole, paying extremely out of pocket for a home because it's the only one you can find that meets your needs. Do a little bit of that budget planning so that way you can be able to identify those things up front.
Yeah, and be prepared. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like training.
Yes.
So you're known for helping families get organized, especially with your PCS binder system. Why does that make such a difference? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the binder system, when I look back at our first few PCSs, I had like a few pieces of paper that were paper clipped together. And then it turned into a 2-pocket folder, and then it turned into a binder. And the progression of it was the realization of needing to be organized, needing to have certain documents on hand and not be like trying to dig through our suitcases and boxes and things to find where that stuff was. And so it's a place where you can put a copy of your orders, copy of the leave form. If you have hotel reservations, printing them off, because we've shown up to a hotel and like their system was down and they're like, I can't tell you if you have a reservation or not. And so like being able to show them the printout of like, yes, I do have a reservation made all the difference. Being able to put like copies of, if you have pets, their vet records in there. Medical records, I say it's too easy to digitally transfer those these days. But if you have like an ongoing condition, or at one time I PCS'd and I was 37 weeks pregnant. So I hand carried my maternity records to my next location to ensure my new doctor that I met 2 weeks later and then had a baby 5 days after that could take a look and see and didn't have to wait. It's a place to be able to put your inventory as well. But it's where you can put all of those important documents that you may need to reference at one point or another, and you're not digging through a suitcase trying to find where you stuffed them at.
Percent, yeah. And, back in the day before digital maps, my husband would print a map of the installation for me because he would go to work, and I'm like, I don't know where I'm at. And although some of the installations were pretty small, so it wasn't too hard, but he tried to help how he could. So you also talk a lot about understanding your entitlements. You've already mentioned that. So what have you noticed that people are missing there?
The biggest thing is that people are not understanding what their entitlements are actually used for and understanding that not everything is a dollar per dollar reimbursement. And so the biggest one, we've already talked about mileage a little bit. Currently for 2026, it's 20.5 cents per mile. And you can claim that for up to 2 vehicles. And so we know with, gas right now is like 4 something here. That's not going to cover all of it. And so being able to identify that. Dislocation allowance is another one. I talk to so many families and like, what is dislocation allowance? I'm like, please tell me you are checking the one question on your travel voucher that asks if you're claiming it. Most people qualify for it. It's money that is used for other non-reimbursable expenses. So like your move out clean, restocking your pantry, a rental car if you need it, shipping your second POV, pet expenses above
Pet deposits.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah.
Like your dislocation allowance can be used for that. And so the biggest thing is just 1, knowing what those entitlements are and how they're to be utilized. And then 2, again, doing that PCS budget to know what gaps you're going to have to fill out of your own pocket.
Yeah, because they add up. They really do add up. And more times than not, you're on a 1-income family. And so there's not a lot of resources to pull from. Those entitlements for sure a resource. So congratulations. I hear that we are in retirement together. My husband retired a year and a half ago, and you guys, I think you said about a year ago he retired. That's so
Not
exciting.
quite a year.
Not quite a year.
We're be a year in June, so we're not quite there.
Yeah. So that means PCS life is starting to wind down for you. But if you're anything like me, with this podcast especially, I know you're still deeply involved in this space. So advocating, educating, building resources, even writing a book. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So why is this still so important to you, even when it's no longer something your family will have to go through again?
This community has been a part of my life for the last 20 years. It's not something you can easily just walk out the door and close the door and be like, okay, I'm done. And I know some folks can do that, and I applaud them to be able to, kind of make that step and just move on to the next chapter. But I've been just, so dug into our community, supporting where I could, being a part of it, met, so many of my best friends through this community. And on top of that, my son, who graduates in 2 weeks, has enlisted into the Marine Corps. So he goes to boot camp in June. So while me and my husband may not be PCSing regularly, my son is going to be, and he's going to have his own set of PCS moves. And so it's not just I did what I could for my generation, my season while I was there, but now it's about being able to educate and support the next generation of our fighting force that is coming up. That includes my son and his friends and all of that. And so it's just, it's going back to thinking of those times when I was new to PCSing. So here's a fun, quick story. And it goes with our entitlements too. So when we did our first PCS, it was 2 weeks after we got married. And I didn't know about all the entitlements we could get. So here we are at our new, we're at Fort Riley in a new duty station in our empty living room because we owned no furniture at that time, being, just on a college and newlyweds and such. I was checking our bank account and there was this random deposit of money. And I should have known, it was some odd number in some odd sense, right? But I didn't know what it was from. And so I'm asking my husband about it, and he didn't know what it was from. And I was just like, do you have a rich family member? And this is a wedding gift, like they just went to our bank and deposited as a wedding gift. And he's just no, my family's not rich. And again, it was 40, it ended up with $43.32. So something really odd should have been a light bulb. No, Megan, this is not a wedding gift. Well, we found out it was our reimbursements and our entitlements from when we moved and all of that. And so I had no idea. And so if I had no idea, I know there's other families and spouses that have no idea of what this process is and those entitlements. So I want to be able to just continue to educate and share the resources with the next generation to ensure that they're more prepared than what I was when it comes to PCSing.
Yeah, I love that part of your story because I remember when he retired, it's okay, am I not an Army wife anymore?
Yeah.
I've always identified with that phrase, but we're not active duty but the Army is a lot of created who we are today. But I think in the movie We Were Soldiers, that's the Vietnam era. And in that movie, when you watch what those spouses go through, active duty or not, that just doesn't not become a part of your identity anymore and carry so much weight in your heart that when you meet another spouse, you want to love her, him, talk to them, share stories, collective conscious around making their experience maybe better than what you had. And you just can't turn that off. And I want to empower you, no matter how far retirement down the road gets, to know that these spouses need your advocacy and they need your help. They need your words. They need your guidance. If anything, more so now, because maybe we've created some space to serve in that way because we are no longer active duty and moving all the time anymore. Yeah. So where are you guys settling down?
So we are currently in Richmond, Virginia. We're 20 minutes north of, so we didn't leave the military area very much or at all. And it's home for now. It's probably not our forever ever home, but it's home for now to be able to get our kids through school and be able to give them a little bit of stability until we figure out what we really want to do in this new season of adulthood.
That's awesome. It's so nice to decide those things for yourself.
It's exciting and scary all at once.
Sure. Nobody's telling you.
I'm we can't blame this on the Army anymore if we don't like it. It's on us. Yeah. And so
we're just trying to hit that move before the first 3 years because they'll do one more move in retirement. So for those of you that don't know that, when you retire, you get one more move. I think you can create an extension, but we also have a kid graduating, so we haven't wanted to do that yet. But you get 3 years and they'll give you one more PCS technically.
And then you can extend each year up to 6 years.
That's right.
And
That's right.
everything.
So
you
no
have up to
pressure.
6
Two.
years. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're hoping to get that done soon. So do you feel a responsibility to pay it forward? You feel like in the same way that I do, the way that I just shared a little bit?
I do. I really do. Again, it's about educating what the next generation of spouses are. I think it's one of the things that I meet with a lot of advocates within our space is that we want to make it better for the next generation. We don't want them to go through the same things that we go through. And I hear it a lot in like housing. We started having these issues with housing and mold, 20 years ago. Why are we still having them now?
Yeah.
We've been having issues with PCSing and things showing up broken and damaged and late 20 years ago. Why are we still having it now? And while we can't fix every piece of the process, we can educate, we can equip, we can empower families. So that way, when it comes time, they run into those issues, they feel, better in a better position to be able to be their own advocate and be able to, maybe push a little bit and to be able to ask those questions that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do at their last duty station because they just didn't know.
That's right. And we think about readiness too in our military and maintaining a force, making it less painful for spouses is a great way to approach that. And so why wouldn't we want to solve some of these issues, as spouses and as a government, right, to work together to solve these issues and create a better force that sustains and more career military, like what the two of us both were. So PCS stress doesn't just show up on moving day. It builds over weeks. It's the mental load, the constant decision making, the feeling that you're carrying everything at once. And sometimes you need a space to process all of that without having to be the one holding everything together. We'll be right back after a message from Talkspace. Being a military spouse comes with its challenges, but you don't have to navigate them alone. Welcome to MilSpouse in the House, your go-to podcast for real talk, support, and community. And thanks to our sponsor, Talkspace, getting the mental health support you need is easier than ever. Talkspace is a secure, HIPAA-compliant therapy platform where you can connect with licensed therapists anytime, from anywhere. Now in the TRICARE network for all TRICARE recipients, for children 13 and up, retirees, veterans, and active duty spouses. Because mental wellness is for the whole family. Visit Talkspace.com/MilSpouse today and take the first step towards support that fits your lifestyle. And we're back with Megan Harless talking about how to PCS smarter, not harder, like a pro. So let's make this super practical. Give us your top PCS tips. What do you wish every military family knew before they moved?
Yes. So I'll give you a top few that I always tell everybody, like once you get your orders or even before you get your orders, you can start working on preparing to PCS, right? If we know we're moving, we don't have to wait till we have orders in hand. There's things we can do. So one is doing the PCS purge. I love a good PCS purge. It's basically a good spring cleaning. We all have stuff that we don't use in our home. And if you're not doing a PPM, you're letting the military move you. Like we play the game all the time of, are we going to make weight? Are we going to be over or under? And so our family, we have a small library, we have a home gym, and I have a collection of 72 ceramic Christmas trees. And so we always play that game. Like,
and those are going with you, it sounds like.
So we have allowed the moving companies to move them, but I do bubble wrap them. I pack them well, and they go in the giant tough boxes that our service members take on deployments. So they're good protected. But do a purge. And it sounds daunting, but start with your clothes, start with toys. We all have clothes we don't wear. Our kids have clothes they don't wear. Pull that out. Toys that they've outgrown or are broken, pull them out and just take it one room at a time. You can start researching your next location. If you know where you're going while you're waiting on orders, you don't have to sit and wait. Research housing, your hairdresser, your doctor, all of that stuff. You can gather what is going with you in a secured area. We all have those standard items that we know are going with us. I have a tote of stuff that I know I'm not trusting to the moving company. It's coming with me. So I pull that tote out and I start putting those things in there. So that way it's less I have to run around and do later. Clothes that you may need, your service members' uniforms and things, like start putting that in there. You know where their PT belt is. Go ahead and grab that and put it in the pile. As we already talked about, create that budget. That being one of the best things that you can do for your PCS is to be financially ready for it. Don't end up in that situation where you're like, I am $10,000 in debt from this move because we didn't plan for it and I thought everything was reimbursed. It is not. So take the time to do that budget. If you're doing a PPM, start getting your quotes for however you're doing it. Get quote if you, container companies are a big thing now, but don't just go with U-Pack because everybody uses U-Pack. Go get the quote from Pods and Estes and PackRat and compare what services they offer and what the price is. You might be surprised which one is better for your situation. And then as always, make your own inventory of some kind, at least a high value inventory, an inventory of like your furniture. So you have some kind of documentation of those things that you're letting the moving company take with them. And then that way, if there is an issue, you have proof of it in some form or fashion to be able to show like this is actually what they did take.
Those are awesome. Those are great tips. Yes, very practical for every single move. I think I know that we did all that. We didn't do it as organized, really, but over the years, we definitely got better for sure. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to do a lightning round. I want you to say the first thing that comes to mind, all right?
Okay.
All right. All right, brain cells, let's go. Favorite duty station and why?
Fort Leavenworth. I loved the small town feel. I met some of my best friends being there, but you weren't missing anything because Kansas City was 20 minutes away. Still had all the big city amenities, but not dealing with all the traffic.
Right. It is pretty there. So hardest part of a PCS?
Starting over at the new duty station, especially when you don't know anybody there.
Yeah, and that's starting over a lot of things, not just the act of starting over. Work, kids, friends, you said hairdresser, babysitter, you name it. Yeah. All right. Most underrated PCS tip?
Either the purge or the budget.
Yeah, I love the good purge. If I didn't want to unpack it when I got there, it wasn't coming. One thing you always do before a move?
I
purge. You've said that.
I purge everything. I gather the things that are going with me.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have a tote of things I don't trust. And like in that tote, I have some sentimental things for my grandparents that I don't want to trust them. I have my jewelry, my husband's first 2 deployments. First one was during the surge, but he kept a journal that he wrote in every day while he was on deployment. And so he didn't give them to me to read until after he was done with deployment. So, of course, I didn't freak out why he was there in the midst of things. But those journals, they get packed and they come with me because it's the story of what he went through.
Yeah, and you can't find that again. One word to describe military spouses during move season.
Stressed.
Yeah, frantic. The first thing you unpack every single time?
My kitchen.
Yeah, that in the kids' rooms. We always made sure our kids had a space and that it's interesting how your things can become your home. It's not so much the building, it's what you put in it. And nothing of over extreme value, but their favorite stuffed animals and their bedding. And those always help them transition pretty quickly.
No, absolutely.
One thing the military still hasn't figured out about PCSing.
It's expensive.
Yeah. A lot of hidden expenses, right? That just, they're not even tracking really.
Yes. I mean, when we talk about like the rental cars, I mean, we do have now pet reimbursement, but it only covers so much. It only covers for one pet. So if you're like my family with multiple pets, we're only getting reimbursed for one of them. Rental cars are not covered at all unless the car that you shipped through the military misses the required delivery date. So a lot of families are paying out of pocket for that, shipping their second POV, housing when you end up in a location where we're finding something within BAH that's in a safe neighborhood that meets your needs is near impossible. So all the families paying out of pocket for just moving is expensive and our entitlements and just hasn't met up to the market cost of things. Yeah. And I find in the Army specifically, and probably other branches too, like we've done a 6-month move, an 18th month move. I mean, we had moved, I think 9 times in 12 years. And so it becomes your story. You just move all the time. And, the amount of money that you can get behind on it's unfortunate, really, but it is a part of it. I'm hoping they're figuring that out. Yeah. So I'll throw this in here. So studies show that families take 12 to 36 months to either rebuild their savings or to pay off that credit card that they used for PCSing. And our families typically move every 12 to 36 months. So as you're rebuilding and coming out of the stress of one PCS financially, you're going right back into another one. Yeah. So still work to be done. So before we wrap up, if someone is feeling overwhelmed right now, staring at orders or in the middle of the move, it is PCS season coming up.
What's one small step they can take today to make this PCS a little bit easier?
So if they're staring at their orders, know that they're coming. Just start trying to make a general plan. You can finalize details later, but start trying to figure out when you could possibly move, what dates look good for that. Start that research, start what all that pre-planning you can do before your orders. If you're in the middle of it, just know, everything makes for a great story later, and moving is hard. And so while it sucks going through it, just take a deep breath. If you need to scream and let it out, scream and let it call me. I will scream with you. It's, we'll do it together. But the big thing, just take a deep breath and then just identify what it is you can fix, what you can control, what you can handle, and focus on those things. There's a lot that we cannot fix, a lot that we cannot control. And so don't stress over the things that you can't have any input into, and focus on the things that you can.
Yeah, and military spouses are resourceful. And one thing we didn't have maybe 15 years ago is these Facebook groups in the specific city or the duty station of can you tell me this? Can you tell me that? I remember when we moved here, which is where we retired, a fellow spouse that I'd known at a different duty station just kind of gave me a list of neighborhoods. Like, here's where you probably want to be looking with playgrounds and sidewalks, and just resourcing a spouse that I knew that had been stationed there helped a ton. It helped me problem solve a lot. So there's so much we can do. So as you mentioned earlier, you're working on a book, or maybe I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it, which is so exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what your readers can expect?
Yeah. So this book is kind of my advocacy story. The working title of it right now is Facing the Truck, Unboxing the Journey of Taking on a Combatant Command Through Advocacy. Because Transcom at the time held the personal property program. They are losing that, standing up as a new organization now. But, it's just the story of kind of that traditional route to advocacy, right? With a petition. And then I did email a couple of 4-star generals, because why not? The worst thing that could happen is that they just don't respond, right? So I was just like, let me just shoot off this email to this general guy. So it goes through kind of that journey of how things started. And then last year, we had the GHC, the Global Household Goods Contract, which was this single source manager contract where they were letting this one company manage the personal property program. So that way Transcom only had to talk to one company. It was disastrous. It was a complete mess. Probably should have never happened. Thousands of families impacted by it. To date, nobody has taken accountability or responsibility for it, and everything. And we just let families suffer because we had this contract and we were paying billions of dollars for it. And so it's that story of kind of pushing back and being that outspoken person, and all of the things that kind of happened behind the scenes of what was shown on social media, of what I went through and how I navigated all of that. And now that we're in the aftermath of that contract, how things have changed since that contract ended, and how the military has changed their perspective of what our relocation program needs to be.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to see you on the news talking about your book. That'll be exciting. So where can listeners find you and all your resources?
I'm everywhere. I'm working hard to be everywhere. Listen, I just got TikTok a few weeks ago.
Oh, then you really are everywhere. I have not gone there yet.
I got on there, my first video is like, hey, welcome guys. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's figure this out together, right? I'm trying to meet spouses where they're at in their season of life of where they are. And so, what do you call this thing? Website is PCSLikeAPro.org. Facebook, it's PCS Like a Pro is the public page. I have a private group. That's PCS Like a Pro - Your Smooth Move. Instagram is PCS Like a Pro with underscores under each word. And then at TikTok, it's the PCS Like a Pro.
Everywhere. The resources are there. Again, information is a lot easier to find these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful to meet you. I'm so proud of you. I love meeting spouses that speak, shine, give, serve, and make change, right? And hopefully make this process easier. So everyone, remember, PCS does not have to feel like chaos. With the right tools, knowledge, and support, it can actually feel manageable and even empowering. Megan, thank you so much for the work you're doing, for continuing to show up for military families. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another military spouse heading into PCS season. Follow us at This Is MilSpouses and visit milspouses.com for more real-life resources and inspiring stories of military spouses doing incredible things in our community. I'm Christie Nix, your host, signing off the net.